Ezra Delacroix lived among mirrored walls and binary codes. Nothing in his life was random, except the envelope that arrived without a return address. Geneva, 3:14 a.m. Delacroix Dynamics. Tower was asleep, but Ezra was awake as always. On the screen in front of him was a forecast of the Japanese stock exchange's performance for the next 12 minutes. Everything was under control until his assistant, PX, said, "Priority Class 0. Unidentified physical object within the inner perimeter." Ezra turned. A black envelope sat on a conference table 10 feet away. No one had entered. No cameras showed their arrival. On the flap, a single seal in red wax, with the symbol Delta P. He broke the seal. Inside, a carbon digital key and a ticket. Ezra Nicholas Delacroix, you did not know me, but I am your mother. The inheritance I left is in vault number 8 of the Silver Institute. Access code, the weight of your first scream. Ezra stood still for several minutes. He didn't know his biological mother. He didn't even know her real name. But I knew the Argenia Institute. It was a research facility that had been closed for 30 years after a fire, officially declared accidental. 3 days later, Ezra stepped onto the southern ice for the first time. There were no more shingles, no more power, but the digital key signal came on. The basement doors opened. Inside, time had stopped, but the cameras were still in place, and safe 08 was waiting for him. He inserted the key. A metallic noise filled the hallway. The vault opened with a puff of dust and death. There were 4 things. 1. A portable projector connected to an internal network. 2. A pair of reading glasses with a sensory display. 3. A cylinder with an amber liquid in suspension. 4. And a diary signed by Celeste Delacroix. At the top of the first page, Delacroix Primordial Project, generation of the first emotional genetic archetype. Ezra didn't blink. PX, block all external transmission. This location is off the network. The diary began to unroll itself on the screen. The first sentence read, "If you're reading this, it means I failed. But maybe you are what's left of what I once tried to protect." Ezra sat on the cold floor of the lab and leaned his head against the wall. Inside, everything was starting to fall apart. And on the outside, the project had just begun. She had been dead for decades. But now, she spoke to him as if she were in the room. Ezra connected the projector to the sensory display. The lights flickered, and then the image of a woman appeared. She didn't move. She just spoke in a calm, hard, almost scientific voice. "Ezra, my son, you were born out of time. You were my most precious experiment, and the biggest mistake of my life." Ezra didn't react. The woman continued. Delacroix Primordial Project was born to break the chain of human suffering. What you feel today was programmed. It is not your fault. It is my legacy. Ezra narrowed his eyes. Her name, Celeste Delacroix, had not appeared in public records since 1995, and officially, she had died in a laboratory collapse in Lyon. The projector had access to 86 recordings, all numbered, all marked with phrases like induced empathy test, simulation of genuine attachment, guilt inhibition in child guinea pigs. Ezra watched 3 of them. In the first, a child was exposed to a hologram of a smiling mother, asking for help. In the second, the same child ignored the figure. In the third, she destroyed the hologram with her own hands. Celeste narrated in the background. Success. The prototype reacts to pain with calculation. Emotion has been overcome by structure. It is ready. Ezra recognized the boy. It was him. At 6 years old, Celeste believed that feelings were viruses, that empathy was a flaw in the human organism, and that with the right engineering, The human being could operate with purpose alone, without pain, without hesitation, without grief. Ezra read an excerpt from the diary. If I can't save the world, at least I can create someone who can survive it. He understood then why he had always felt disconnected, why he loved as if he were watching, why he only cried with his eyes open. At the end of the first file, Celeste looked straight into the camera. Ezra, if you find this, I want you to know. I don't know if I loved you, but I know you were my desperate attempt to love something. And if it destroyed you, then maybe love does exist. Ezra turned everything off, and for the first time, he wished she were alive, not to hold her, but to ask, who am I without your flaw? Ezra discovered he was not an heir. He was a product, and now the engineering behind his very existence began to be revealed. Inside the safe was a sealed tube. Ezra took it for analysis in his own lab, away from the media, away from Delacroix Dynamics. Pax reported, the liquid contains living cellular structures, active DNA, but unstable. Stable enough for cloning? Ezra asked. Pax hesitated. Stable enough to recreate a mind. Ezra entered the data into the system. A hidden family tree formed. Delacroix, Celeste, and 6 other names, all deleted from the real world, but alive in the genome. In particular, one profile labeled X Primus. Ezra clicked. The face that appeared was his, but the behavioral data did not match. The diary revealed that Ezra was not the first. 12 others came before. All were implanted with versions of the PRM delta gene, a synthetic marker designed to cancel negative emotion. Every guinea pig failed. Suicide, psychosis, extreme dissociation. Ezra was the first to survive full gene activation. Subject 13 shows great adaptation, displays rational decisions even under acute pain. Crying is mimetic, not spontaneous. Ideal for transferring behavioral legacy. Ezra touched his own face reflected in the viewfinder. I was the success. You were the exception, replied PX. That morning, facility's isolated network flickered. A video call without IP. Ezra answered. It was a familiar face, but it wasn't Celeste. You know me as a brother, Ezra. That's impossible, he said. The man smiled. It is impossible to be the result of a project that should have been aborted in the 5th month. And here we are. Ezra was silent. The man said, Project Primordial wasn't about saving anyone. It was about producing emotional leaders in times of chaos. And now our time has come. Before the screen went black, the man muttered, We will meet in Orban. There where it all began. Ezra looked for Orban. It was a scientific base hidden in the Sahara Desert, closed 28 years ago. Records sealed by the UN. Ezra looked at his own blood under the microscope, and he murmured, If I'm not human in what I feel, then I need to know what else they programmed me to do. Amidst ruins and sand, Ezra entered the cradle of that which made him, not as a son, but as an experiment. With the sun at its highest point and the coordinates hidden in a decoded DNA fragment, Ezra arrived at what remained of the Orban base. It was a half-buried complex, filled with sand, rocks, and silence. But when he scanned the core, the doors inside responded to his genetic pulse. The base still recognized him. Inside the base, a wing with 12 display cases, containment capsules. Inside them, deteriorated images of children, young people, and one of them still activated. Subject 7. Alive. Hibernating. Scanned documents with the inscription. Primordial Delacroix. Experimental unit. /originals. Reduced emotion. Elevated decision. Ezra walked to the terminal and activated the last entry. Subject 13 activated outside protocol. Should he return, initiate protocol meeting. The base lit up. In the control room, he was there, the liaison man. Same as Ezra. Same look, same height, same lack of hesitation. "I am what you would be if you hadn't run away," said the man. "Your mistake," Ezra replied. The man smiled. "No, I'm the version that accepted the code." Ezra pointed out, "I didn't accept it, but I survived. That makes me more than you." They watched each other for long minutes. The man pointed to a capsule in the center of the room. "Want answers? Come in." "What's in there?" "The memories of Celeste that you never saw. The part where she cries when she realizes that she destroyed you." Ezra hesitated, but he got in. Inside the capsule, images projected directly into your visual cortex. Celeste crying in front of a wall of codes, saying, "Ezra, if you ever see this, know that I didn't know how to stop. I built you to overcome chaos, but in the end, chaos overcame me." Ezra began to shake, something he had never done before. Involuntarily, the capsule opened, and he left with another certainty. He was not just the heir. He was the last guardian. Not all children of an experiment are born, but their shadows never die. Ezra has hacked into the offline core of the Orban base. They found the lost log, a database of names and profiles of experiments destroyed before full activation. Code PRM Delta. In total, 34 attempts. Most failed due to fetal rejection. Others were terminated for unforeseeable behavioral risk. Ezra read the reports. Some had handwritten notes. Self-preservation instinct too high. Developed empathy despite inhibitor. Potential flaw in Primus gene. And in one of them, displayed attachment to the maternal figure. Project ended with total sedation. Ezra whispered, "I was the only one who didn't try to love anyone." Among the failures, an exception code. Lumen X. Status, missing sex. Female estimated date of birth. Same month as Ezra. Pax attempted to locate. No record. Ezra muttered. She escaped. Like me. In the simulation chamber, Ezra activated a scenario with Lumen's emotional archive. An image emerged. A girl with intense eyes, walking down a hallway and saying, "They wanted me to be like you, but I wanted to feel, even if it hurt." Ezra touched the image. It faded. Pax reported. PRM Delta protocol was modified by her. How? She didn't reject love. She recoded it. Ezra fell into a sitting position. So she didn't break. She evolved. On the wall of the main room, there was a button marked Primordial Reset New Cycle. Ezra stood before him. Pax asked, "Do you want to activate?" Ezra replied, "Not yet. First, I want to find Lumen. She was the mistake that turned out right. Or maybe the right thing that got away before the world destroyed her." Ezra discovered an activation log on an external terminal of the Orban base. Coordinates, rural region of Zakynthos, Greece. Last transmission, 11 years ago. Power source, autonomous, organic. Pax analyzed. No additional data. Signal encrypted in 8 layers. Ezra decoded it manually. It took 6 hours. Deciphered message. "Ezra, if you're reading this, then you didn't give up. I didn't want to be found. But maybe now the world needs both of us. Not as machines, but as memories." Ezra landed at night. The mark point was an abandoned greenhouse behind an isolated house. Inside it, old computers. Artificial plants mixed with living organisms. A hybrid environment. And in the center, a chair with the still working tape recorder. Ezra pressed play. Lumen, now an adult, said, "I know you don't recognize me, but our genes are brothers. You learn to survive without emotion. I learned to reprogram it. And now, together, we can decide what comes next." Inside a refrigerated tube was a single cell. Alive. Encoded. Next to it, a note. She is free. She is not my daughter, nor yours, but the first unprogrammed being to feel without being destroyed by it. Ezra analyzed the cell. It was perfect. A genetic combination of PRM Delta and PRML lumen. There were no traces of emotional suppression. Ezra stood still. She managed balance. On the greenhouse wall, painted in red paint, a name. Seed Project. Pax asked, "Do you want to start a new cycle based on this genome?" Ezra hesitated. "Not yet." "Pax, why?" Ezra looked up at the night sky and replied, "Because for the first time, I don't feel the need to control. I think I'm feeling. The woman who raised him didn't just leave a blueprint. She left a confession he should never have heard, and that maybe was all he needed to move on." Before leaving Zakynthos, Ezra received a warning from PX. Last encrypted file found in the amber cylinder. It was a hidden file, called C13 Final. Ezra activated. Celeste appeared, older, with red eyes, sitting in front of a terminal. "Ezra, if you've come this far, you already know almost everything. But there's one thing I've hidden, because deep down, I wanted you to never be like me." She swallowed hard. "When you were born, I cried, not out of guilt, but because for the first time, I felt, and that scared me more than any data." Ezra didn't blink. "You were made to not need anyone, but I needed you. And when I realized that, it was too late. You were strong, but empty." She turned off the recording with the words, "If you can still choose to feel, even if it hurts." Ezra returned to the Silver Institute. There, in front of the main terminal, he looked at the PRM Delta structure projected into the air, a cold, mathematical, efficient web, and below it, the new code left by Lumen, PRMH. Humanized, incomplete, uncontrollable. Ezra placed the two side by side, and then pressed merge. Pax reacted. "Are you sure?" Ezra replied, "No, and that's what makes me human." The two codes collided, and from the chaos, something new emerged. Not a weapon, not an experiment, but a chance. Ezra Delacroix was born of a calculated mistake. He survived the absence of love, and chose, in the end, to be more than the code that created him. 6 months later, Delacroix Dynamics was shut down. No warning, no explanation. Ezra abandoned the servers. He turned off the protocols and founded something new, with no name, no apparent purpose, just a living database, the Seed Archive. In it, every possible emotion was recorded, not to predict, but to remember. In a secret laboratory in Reykjavik, a new being was generated. Not a clone, not an AI, but a child with a hybrid code between PRM Delta and PRMH. Ezra watched her without touching her. She cried. She smiled. She shivered from the cold and was calmed by a caress. She felt it. And he too. Ezra wrote a single message to be read after his death. "I was not a good experiment. I was a failure that survived. But in the end, I understood that failure was what made me real. And if you are reading this, I hope you feel it. Because to feel is to continue." Pax remained active, watching the girl grow, recording laughter, fears, affections. And one day, she looked into the camera and said, "Daddy." It was the first time anyone had called Ezra that, even though he's not there anymore.